Hey everybody, greetings from the fiber room. It's a little dark in here. I just snuck upstairs and made a real quick, it's a video topic that's been on my mind because I just got into a fight with, I was Navajo plying, oh man, my bangs are doing weird things. I was Navajo plying on kind of a new fiber base. I had Navajo plied on before. It was a merino tinsel and it got a little ugly. And so I figured out some gears and ratios that worked and a few tricks. And then I was just talking to a lot of my friends in our Facebook group, Hand Spun Yarn Love, and I had a lot of people asking me about gears and ratios. So I took it as a sign from the universe I needed to come make this video real quick. So if you are looking for a basic troubleshooting for Navajo plying, then check it out. And like I said, we've got... yeah, I think that's what this is going to be if you want more of an in-depth how to spin nice singles. Because there's kind of, Navajo ply, there's like foundational stuff you need to be good at first. So if you are a newer spinner and you need more foundational things and then a step-by-step, like from attaching the fiber through doing it on Navajo ply, then that is in our Dream Yarn course. So go check that out. And if not, if you already kind of know what you're doing, then here's a free video. Alright everybody, I've had a lot of people in our Facebook group asking me about Navajo plying, and so this is kind of a little troubleshooting video. I've already started my Navajo ply on, so it's on the opposite side of how I spun it, and I've attached it, and I would say first troubleshooting step is that having your single, because you're spinning it the opposite direction, kind of coming apart on you. So I definitely, before you start trying to Navajo ply, and you'll probably get better as you do it, I would make sure that you get your yarn wrapping around just as a single. You can see it here where the ply starts here, and this is a single. Get your single securely wrapping around your bobbin before you start trying to do anything else, because that's going to give it more strength so that it stops coming apart on you. As far as the gears, I've got it on a middle gear here on my King Bee, and I did tighten the tension up just a little bit on my tension block because basically my thinking on this, and this was just from experimenting, was I want it on a middle gear because I don't want it making it too twisty in the opposite direction and making it come apart. But I also want it to go on and get up on the bobbin because I don't want it doing weird stuff out here if the uptake's not strong enough. So that would be my recommendation for gears. And also, my troubleshooting tip that I've recently had come about from doing a lot of Navajo ply on, this is just regular merino, and I'm just using some scrap yarn, and you can see it's, it's just pretty basic worsted weight merino. I did recently do a lot of Navajo plying on, it was a merino tinsel blend, and so it was a little bit silkier, and it did give me some difficulty, which is kind of what inspired this video. Was it kept the merino tinsel blend, I was having to spin the singles in order for them to hold together so they wouldn't fall apart when I was plying it. I had to spin them pretty tightly, but then in the process of spinning them more tightly, if they got too twisty, the singles, and y'all know what I mean, like where if this one's fine, but the merino tinsel, in trying to spin it too tightly to make sure that it stayed together, parts of it were getting like the little tight, like pigtail twist in it. And so then that, with two-ply, if you're two-plying it when you're doing it, the two of them together, I at least can kind of like smooth out, and like I said, this yarn's fine, but I can kind of smooth it out as I'm plying it, and it ends up being fine. That I did not find to be the case with Navajo ply. With Navajo ply, you really want strong singles, but you want not overly twisted strong singles. So I would definitely hold off on doing Navajo ply until you can get some well-behaved, strong, but not too twisty singles, because that was definitely a source of aggravation for me. So that would be tip number 2, is make sure you are spinning consistent, strong singles that are not, you don't want any little pigtails in here because you can't kind of rescue them as you're plying like you can in 2-ply. Okay, third tip, and I'm just going to kind of talk as I'm doing this and try to show you, is, let's see, let me get this going. So as you see, I've got, like I said, I've got it on a middle, like a middle to larger size gear. And I've got the tension, it's actually taken this from me pretty quickly, which I want, because in my experience, let me kind of turn this, the longer that you've got the yarn in this area, kind of in the active zone, the more chance you have for it to get weird. So I would recommend, like I said, so you kind of got to move on your toes, you know, to get it looking right. And you want it to be, see how this is kind of, this is where you just kind of have to experiment. You want it to get enough twist in it that it is a tight, compact single here, but you don't, you know, you don't want it to be like too bulky and floppy, but you also don't want it moving so fast that you can't do it. So that's where you just kind of get some scrap yarn and just practice first, because that's just a timing thing. But one other thing you'll see with Navajo ply is sometimes in this little, here I'll show you, in this little part right here where you're joining it, sometimes you can end up with kind of like a little bump. And I would definitely be mindful of the bump. If you see, like, you know, you're spinning along and a bump kind of happens, and you can see where it's kind of tangled. There you go. It's hard to move this where you can see what I'm doing, but you can see how there's like a tangled bump right here. You can kind of stop your feet immediately as soon as you see what's happening, and you can kind of hold your tail and kind of pull it back out, and it'll straighten. And then you can continue on. If you let it get too far, you know, down your yarn, that's obviously going to be a lot harder to do. But like I said, I'll show you again. If you're going and it kind of, it's where the yarn kind of double feeds up on itself and you'll end up with a bump. Just take the tail in this hand, stop your feet, and just unpull it, and then kind of gently pull it towards you. And then that will kind of, like I said, stop your feet, and then you can kind of straighten that out. And then get your feet going again. And like I said, you want to hold it long enough that you get a condensed twist. And then let it go down. And a good way to avoid those little bumps, and the little bumps happen where if you're pulling too much this way, see, it'll kind of double up on itself. A good way to keep that from happening is if you see a little bump start to happen, like I said, just stop. And the trick is, don't panic and just pull it back this way. And then that'll keep any bumps from happening. So I'll just let you see, don't pull up. That's how the bumps happen. Pull out and down. And let it continue on that way.